Parks, Health, Aging, and River Committee. We are going to be joined shortly by Corinne Price, and we are joined by Tom LaBonge. We are going to start with item 7. Ms. Galvin, if you could please read the item.
Item 7 is the motion Koretz-Martinez-Blumenfield relative to requesting the city attorney to prepare and present the necessary ordinance to prohibit certain behaviors in the city's wildlife areas, including but not limited to the following: the taking of animals, the removal of plants and soil, and the taking and breaking of bird eggs.
Thank you. And I do believe a comment card was handed in for this item, maybe a couple.
It is for 5 and 6.
Yes, 5 and 6. Okay. And so we are, thank you. We have Andy Schrader from the Office of Councilmember Paul Koretz with us to give a brief summary.
Yes,
Mr.
thank
Schrader.
you, Councilmember, for hearing this motion. As we all know, the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Area is one of the beautiful, special areas in Los Angeles, and the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Area Steering Committee takes good care of it. They brought this to our attention about a year ago, that people were kind of hunting and gathering eggs and killing birds, and LAPD mentioned that there was a few holes in the city's ordinance that needed to be amended to allow them to enforce it. So we've been working hard with the city attorney's office, LAPD, and the community group to figure out what those holes were and how to fix them. And the city attorney can probably speak to the details.
Okay. Would you like to add to it, City Attorney?
Okay. Yeah, Streffen Fauble. Most of what we need is already in the code at 6344, but there are a few holes. And the proposal is to simply add a standalone section which addresses merely Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Area, saying that the general park rules apply and that it will also add in no disturbance of eggs or nests, stay on the paths. That should, no dogs on or off leashes or other domesticated animals, and that'll be it.
Okay.
So simple fix.
Sounds pretty straightforward. Yep. All right. Thank you. Mr. LaBonge.
Yeah, a couple things. I don't know if there's staff here. There's a lot of dead trees out there. So how does this affect dead trees? Okay, well, then can you take the dead tree down?
You want to add?
There's over 1,000 dead trees in Griffith Park. So there's got to be thousands. The drought, and there's been an insect that's torn it apart. So I want to make sure that we can remove these trees no matter what, because of the fire danger in the Mountain Fire District, which this covers. That's the one question that you may have not thought of.
So this is only addressing the Sepulveda Basin Wildlife Area, not Griffith Park.
Not other parts of the city.
Correct.
So if you're an unfortunate egg and you live in Van Nuys but not in Sepulveda Basin, you could get knocked off.
Yep.
Wow. All right. So what are you going to do about that?
We discussed making this a citywide ordinance. We thought we would see how it goes here and see if there's a need.
Okay. I just think we got to look at the dead trees and what that means, because they still nest in dead trees, but we'll look at that. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LaBonge. All right. So we do have one comment card from Tony Tucci for item 7. Hello.
Hello, committee chair and committee. My name is Tony Tucci. I'm representing an organization called Citizens for Los Angeles Wildlife, and we made comments into this file at an earlier time, and I would just like to reiterate I appreciate the city attorney's presence and reiterate some of the things that we said in regards to this council motion. And one of them is, while I respectfully appreciate that this is a pilot program for the Sepulveda Basin at Citizens for Los Angeles Wildlife, we get reports about abuse against wildlife in many regions throughout the city. So I urge, for example, right at the base of the Angeles Forest, the most northernmost section of our LA city, we get reports of people target practicing with bow and arrow on deer. And Councilmember Labange has mentioned that there's some needs for things to go on in Griffith Park more appropriately. So I would appreciate that you guys recognize that while this is a pilot program, that you would think about carefully and quickly expanding it to environmentally sensitive regions citywide. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Thank you. And we are joined by our colleague, Corinne Price. Welcome, Mr. Price. And what I'd like to do now is, I'm going to call for some consent items, but one of them is also item 5, but we have a speaker on item 5 that I'd like to make sure you are heard. So if we could read item 5 for the record.
Item 5 is the Department of Recreation and Parks report and resolution relative to assignment to the Los Angeles River Revitalization Corporation a right to apply for Proposition A, city's excess funds for the completion of the La Cretz Crossing Bridge project.
Thank you. And we have Therese Dietlin. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I didn't really read this carefully before I came, so that caught me a little bit off guard. I just wanted to say that I'm on the River Committee I live in Atwater, and I'm on the River Committee for the Atwater Village Neighborhood Council, and I live about 2 blocks away from where this bridge is reportedly going to go up. And my concern is that as a member of the River Committee, we've been trying to get information from this corporation about exactly what this bridge and the crossing and the environs, what it entails, and we have really not gotten a response from them. They claim they send the letters, but wherever they sent them, they didn't come to us. So we have no details about what they're planning. We're hearing a lot of rumors about what they're planning, but we're not getting any solid information. Now, I haven't talked to my committee about this, so I'm not really sure how they feel about it. I'm speaking about it for me as an individual who knows this information because I'm on this committee. But I feel unless they're more transparent with the community about what their plans are and where they're going, I really don't feel comfortable with giving them my tax dollars from the city to complete a project that we are really unclear about. So that's my objection to it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dietlin. Let me just respond to you as well as that we have conveyed and received confirmation that the LA River Corps is going to present in Atwater Village, and I thought it was already taking place last week, but if it wasn't last week, it's this week.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've got the confirmation.
I have no information on that yet.
Okay, so work with my staff, and we'll connect you directly, but I am sure that they are agendized, I think, if not for your committee, for the neighborhood council, certainly. And then let me add also that this bridge is a gift to the community to connect the greater Atwater Village with Griffith Park.
The history of it, but all the history of
Sure.
it going on for a few years.
And that it's another step in just establishing greater connectivity along the river. But we'll make sure that you're fully informed and all your questions are answered.
If I could ask young lady, if you could sit right down for one moment, please. What street you live on in Atwater Village?
Bemis.
Okay, so here's the river right here. Pretend this is the river.
Mhm.
I'm Griffith Park. You're Atwater.
Okay.
Okay. Right now, the horses have to go down in the channel and cross and come up. It was a desire for many years, including many of the equestrians, to see a bridge across there so there wouldn't be, in inclement weather, when the river's full, access denied to Griffith Park. There's 56 miles of hiking trail. So basically, near where the existing ramp goes down, but near that vicinity, which
Right.
you're going to get a good briefing on,
Right.
will be a bridge that
yeah.
will go across.
Yeah.
And also you, on your daily walks, if you choose to want to come into Griffith Park, could come across that bridge as well. And there it says strong support from the equestrian community. And if we don't take advantage of this great gift now, it may go someplace else. But I'm glad that someone's going to be, one of your deputies going to be there, Mitch?
Of course.
Of course. So this will be good for the community.
Okay, and one of the ambiguities in the original discussions of this bridge was it was supposed to be an equestrian bridge, not a pedestrian bridge. So that's still something that I'm not clear about. I mean, nobody's given me good
Well,
guidance.
everything we have to do now, sometimes they call this multimodal. So
Okay.
a bike, and then also the bikeway is on the east side of the bridge because the horses lived on the west side of the bridge, the Griffith Park side or the freeway side, and then the other side is more passive, the
No,
neighborhood
there are a lot of stables there. And in fact, when I first moved there, it was not unusual to drive down Brunswick and have horses go riding by me.
Absolutely.
But they don't do that anymore, and they haven't done it in years. I'm not sure why. So,
Well, the
yeah.
rent's higher down there than it is up in Atwater North, so that's the only thing I could guess.
Okay. All I know is they don't do it anymore.
I know.
And it was kind of neat to see them.
It was.
Thank you, Ms. Dietland.
When did you move into Atwater?
December 31st, 1999.
Oh, 1999. Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, well, colleagues, I'm going to suggest that we move item 5 forward without objection. Seeing as there's no objection, thank you. And then also, colleagues, I would like to take items 1, 2, 3, and 4 on consent, if there are no objections.
Yeah, and I think we should really thank the LA 84 Foundation, Kaiser Permanente, as well as the other groups. And Ms. Barth is in charge of, underneath the great tutelage of Vicky Israel, the partnership program for Rec and Parks. Good job.
Thank you. All right, and colleagues, that brings us to item 6, and I have to excuse myself. I have a 2:30 appointment, which was scheduled to the last moment here, which is really important, and my Vice Chair, Tom LaBonge, is going to take over from here for item 6. So if you'll excuse me, and I thank you.
Thank you. And these cards here, do we have to call on these cards here?
We did those on consent.
Got it. Okay, good. Got it. Okay. All right, so here we are right now. The next item, Madam Clerk.
Item 6 is the Department of Cultural Affairs to provide a verbal status report in response to motion Parks O'Farrell Martinez relative to efforts to mark and commemorate the 50th anniversary of the 1965.
Okay, is there anything else on the agenda?
No.
Okay, and Joe, Little Joe, is Big Joe around?
He's coming, he's on his way up.
Like how soon?
I presume he's on the 110, that's necessary.
Okay, because he wanted to speak to this, but this may go faster than could be, but
He also wanted to continue this in a report.
on this issue? Oh, good, okay, so that's okay. Hi, Ms. Brazil. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you. Mr. Price, good morning, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, tally ho.
Okay, tally ho. Give me 1 second. So we're here to respond to the motion that was set forth by Councilmember Park, seconded by O'Farrell and Nuri Martinez, Councilmember Martinez, regarding the 50th anniversary of the Watts Uprising Rebellion. We're here to provide a verbal report to this motion. And I would just say that the 50th anniversary of this civil unrest is an important moment for our city. The Department of Cultural Affairs has done a few things to address this, and we're primarily focusing on the cultural aspects. I'm joined here with my colleague Leslie Thomas, who is the director of our Community Arts Division. And our focus has primarily been to create a framework for the 50th commemoration on the cultural side. We have put forward, and Leslie will speak to what we're doing on the Community Arts Division. We're also going to be doing a Community Gallery Bridge exhibition. We'll be putting forward and producing a cultural calendar and guide. And it's my understanding that HRC, Human Relations Commission, is also working on a report and days of dialogue. Leslie, would you like to respond to what you're doing in the Community Arts Division?
Sure. Leslie Thomas, Community Arts Director for the Department of Cultural Affairs. At the Community Arts Division level, we are primarily working, because of the focus of this commemoration, with our centers down in Watts, the Watts Towers Arts Center, the Charles Dominguez Youth Arts Center, and other community groups in the Watts area on a lot of the community events. We are also working, of course, as Danielle has said, with artists on an exhibition that we envision for the Los Angeles Bridge Gallery that will hopefully feature the artwork of new, young, and emerging artists. Particularly, we are interested in capturing the voice of our young artists, particularly a lot of our teens, who have been engaged in learning more about the 1965 Watts Rebellion through schools and community groups and other discussions. We're also, most of you know that we have for many, many years been sponsoring the Watchtowers Jazz Festival, the Watchtowers Day of the Drum Festival.
What's that one?
These festivals, because of their very close proximity to the actual days of the Days of the Rebellion in August, will also then highlight through their celebrations this coming September aspects of the rebellion. So we continue to work with the schools.
Who are you working with at LA Unified?
In beyond, working with the beyond the Bell program, and working with the schools that are primarily through with Markham, the principals, and basically that are housed based in Watts. So, yeah,
Like Jordan High School, like Locke High School?
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And like the councilman of the 15th district as well as others?
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. Yes. So that in a nutshell, we continue our collaboration. Particularly, we feel that it's very important to work very closely with a lot of the community groups, primarily churches and whatever, because we want it to be, and in tandem with the Human Relations Commission, we want this to be a citywide dialogue.
Sure.
And with that citywide dialogue, of course, we've also been in conversation with the mayor's office. They've expressed great interest and a commitment to this commemoration as well. They are also doing a scan of who's doing what, where, when, because we know that we also have, it's the city of Los Angeles, it's in the second district of the county supervisor, so we've got to liaise with our other local electeds and appointeds, with clergy, in addition to the cultural landscape. One other thing is that we've got grantees throughout Los Angeles who are doing work, so we're in the process of doing a scan. For example, Grand Performances down up on Grand Avenue is doing a whole series called Aftershocks, which they received federal support for from the National Endowment for the Arts. And they're going to be using the actual tapes, the KPFK tapes from those 3 days in 65, and creating work specifically in response to that. So the program's emerging, and we'll also be putting forward a event coordinator for this. So we can kind of have a centralized coordinating figure to help all of us get our ducks in a row.
Is the library involved at all?
Yes.
I had a conversation with the general manager, the head librarian, John Sabo.
Chief librarian. He's not a general man, he's a chief librarian.
Is he's a chief?
Yeah, head librarian.
I
That's
like
what it
that.
says, yeah.
They call it a chief?
Yeah,
now?
yeah, they call it a
It's
chief.
like That's fantastic. Okay, so
Hi.
I had Chief Zabo.
Yes.
And he's also doing something, but I think it's that type of citywide coordination that we actually need to have some sort of a working group, so we can kind of bring in, because I think Rec and Parks is also going to be doing some stuff, and we don't want to duplicate efforts, but we also need to have a full scan to see who's doing what, where, when. So
Got to explain for those who were alive in 65 what scan means.
Okay, so how about alive now, because I wasn't quite alive in 65.
I know, but what's scan mean? I'm asking, Madam City Attorney, what's scan mean? Is
It's
that-
basically an inventory of who's doing what, where, when. So kind of getting an asset inventory of all
Little
of the
Joe
events.
knows that. You did know? You learned something. Good. Okay, good.
I will say this, that Leslie Thomas was a central organizing figure for the 40th commemoration, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how the city approached that.
And then I want to go to Mr. Buscaino. Thank you, Leslie.
Yeah. For the 40th, there was a working group that was put together for the city that included the Human Relations Commission, representatives from the various departments, Rec and Parks, library, et cetera. So we want to be able to do something, similar to that. A working group, as Daniel said, would help us really to make sure that we are, we have a broad representation, but we're not duplicating efforts and things that are there. Plus the fact that we want to make sure that we want to include, as the motion has directed, basically, it's a broad city discussion and dialogue about this.
Right.
Yeah.
Mr. Buscaino.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Some exciting times, and also an opportunity for us to remember and reflect on the Watts Rebellion 50 years ago, and something that we continue to support. I appreciate the verbal report. I'd like to get some more information as to some of the funding sources. Obviously, it does take some money to kick off these key commemorative events in the city and historic events in the city of Los Angeles. And wanting to know here, have we identified some funding sources moving forward on this?
We have identified some savings that we've been able to tuck away. We're putting together a budget to address that, and I believe the mayor's office is also looking at some additional
Good.
funding.
And I appreciate the fact, I know that you've identified, you will identify a coordinator, because everyone, this is so important to a number of individuals and stakeholders, organizations across the city, and I agree that we don't want to cross our paths here. And what I'm hearing from John Jones, my field deputy, and Heather Anderson, my planning deputy, that everyone's excited. They want to see pay tribute to this anniversary, but at the same time, we don't want to duplicate our efforts moving forward. Then nothing gets done, right?
Right.
So, and I'm glad that we're having this dialogue early on.
Indeed.
Yes.
I would make one note in that the motion set forth almost DCA as a producing entity, and our producing wing was disbanded some time ago. So the way in which we can go about preparing citywide events is somewhat hindered. However, I think that if we take a citywide task force approach, if we are able to pool our resources and we can identify a centralized coordinating person to help liaise, and we can kind of leverage the investments that we're already making in the Watts community and in the city around this particular issue, I think we're going to be okay.
And some of the feedback that we're getting from our folks on the ground is, let's remember where this took place, and that's in Watts.
Good point.
It didn't happen on Grand Avenue. Didn't happen out in the valley, which I know it's part of our city history, but we need to ensure that we're responsive to the community and the residents, that they want to see a number of these programs and these events taking shape and taking form in Watts.
I think that's appropriate, and I especially think that as we look at from the cultural lens, and I know Councilmember Price, we talk often about the economic impact of the arts, that we really need to look at how the cultural events are going to catalyze further economic prosperity, and you want to actually keep those dollars in that community.
Fantastic, thank you.
Before I call on Mr. Price, add the MTA to your group, because the blue line goes right through there, and then I think that welcomes, when you gave me that spark of idea, because I thought how the MTA now is connecting the county, and all roads leads to Watts, and it would be good to connect to them, and
Great
maybe
idea.
one Saturday or something to
Thank
have
you,
some
Councilman.
special fair.
Yeah.
Price.
No, I'm excited about the potential celebration. I think it will be a celebration, sort of a commemoration. Very historic time that occurred in our city, certainly based in Watts, but touched all parts of our community. And so I'm just hopeful that there will be a broad planning process. Our office, for example, would like to be involved
Great.
in that planning process. But it's going to be a unique opportunity, I think, to certainly reflect on the past, acknowledge the present, and look toward the future.
Right.
So.
And I just suggest,
Thank you.
and I don't know if anyone from the mayor's office is here, but you got to get someone in the mayor's office to coordinate. Having worked citywide in the past, it's real important to have that one point person in the mayor's office who could help if there's nobody identified right now, and because of the transformation of how you don't do events anymore. So it's absolutely key for that.
Thank you,
For you.
Councilmember.
We do have some public comment cards on
Thank you
this.
so much.
On item number 6, General Jeff.
Good afternoon, committee. Thank you. My name is General Jeff. As a homegrown Angelino,
I'm very excited about this commemoration slash celebration in regards to the Watts uprising. However, I am concerned about the actual language, and I think the city of Los Angeles needs to be very careful with how they craft this message, because while on one hand, and everybody in this room knows, we're talking about the cultural aspects of the Watts uprising. When I first heard this, it sounded like it could also be celebrating and encouraging more uprisings, which is not what the city needs. And so I would prefer if it actually said celebrating the cultural aspects of the Watts uprising in all of the language, so there's no room for no gray area. Also, too, hearing Cultural Affairs mention that this would turn into a citywide dialogue, I think it's so important that we add LAPD's voice to this conversation, because in my efforts as a community activist in Skid Row, I have a lot of people that come from the Watts area and the South Central LA area, and there's still trauma that is a lot of residual from the actions of law enforcement in this city. And so from 65 in Watts and 92 with the Rodney King situation to, the Rampart scandal in the 90s and May Day in MacArthur Park in 2010, on and on and on, there's a lot of trauma that's built up. And in order for this city to heal and for us to move along accordingly, I think the LAPD needs to publicly apologize for the trauma that they've caused, because it's led to a lot of mental illness in Skid Row that is still sustaining to this day. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to the point, colleagues, I think of all departments, like the fire department, in 1965, the fire department was only 7 years integrated. So still, there's so much time has come and passed, and new schools that were built because of that. Next card is Wayne Spindler.
Card says Wayne from Encino, another Brown Act violation. So,
excuse me, hold this time for a second. Madam City Attorney, it just says Wayne. I know the individual is Wayne Spindler, so I don't see Wayne from
so
Encino.
I'll call the card pursuant to the Brown Act, the way it's on there.
I'm going to call it if I know your name. So thank you very much. Continue.
Okay. What has changed since the Watts riot? Violate the Brown Act, violate everybody's rights. The prior speaker, it's wonderful. That's really why I came here today, because what I was afraid of was that the overdue apology from the LAPD is needed. They need to go, admit what they did, and what they continue to do to this day, because they haven't changed their behavior. They have not changed their behavior. When are they going to change their behavior, the culture that led to the riots? 50 years. If you give somebody 5 years, 10 years, a consent decree is 10 years, 15 years, they've had 50 years. So on the 50th anniversary, let's admit what it is. Today in Baltimore, they're trying to kill the police today. They're having a funeral. They broke a guy's back, and they're having an almost, use the word rebellion, they're having a rebellion in Baltimore 50 years later. Nothing's changed. This is not a rebellion. The 1965 Watts riots, you're calling it a / rebellion? A rebellion is an insurrection against a legitimate government. What the Watts riots were was a cry for friggin' help, because nobody gets to represent these people, so they had no choice. So when you don't have any choice and you can't vote it out, you finally have to do what Thomas Jefferson said. You have to ferment the seeds of revolution to have democracy. And that's what they did. And once this happened, and all the whites realized they couldn't sell their crap to everybody, they started to institute reforms in Congress. So please, an apology by the LAPD.
That completes the cards that we have. Any further comments? So then on this, Mr. Buska, I know you want to hold this and organize.
30-day report back, please.
30-day report back to this committee.
Thank you.
So that's very good. Next item. Item number 7, I'm told by the deputy for Mr. O'Farrell.
Item number 7. An action needs to be taken on item number 7.
We have one card. Wayne Spindler.
Again, another Brown Act violation. It does not say Wayne Spindler on the card, does it? So, we had a nice meeting Wednesday night last week. Oh, my time's gone. Okay. Now, we talked about this at the Encino Neighborhood Council. And apparently, people are breaking bird eggs. Now, when the settlers came to the United States, the Dutch kids used to take sticks and break these eggs on the beach. They were the dodo birds. That's what we have here, is a retaking of breaking bird eggs, which is destroying possibly protected species. And then we have all of this other bad behavior. So, who's doing this? What kind of animals are being taken? Do we have hunters in this area? See, they didn't really say. So, again,
Thank you.
we have the wildlife areas, but who's doing this? Who in the world would be going in there and doing these things? Might be homeless people living in those RVs off of Woodley Avenue. Might be going in there and digging and taking animals and doing all these insane things. So, why not have in here some enforcement? Because if you're going to make a rule, you have to enforce it. So, where's the money going to come from to have an enforcement officer go in there? If it's state jurisdiction, then you can request the state to pay for the security. LAPD is already overworked. So I believe this is in Nuri Martinez's jurisdiction. So again, the neighborhood council was supportive of it. I support it, except define the issue of the security. Thank you.
So that covers the comment on this item. Madam CLA?
An action just needs to be taken.
Okay. All right. Seconded by Mr. Price, moved by Mr. Busquets, so ordered. Next card is for public comment. We have one card, Wayne Spindler.
Again, the card doesn't say Wayne Spindler on it. Third Brown Act violation. So, last week,
1 minute.
we almost had a rebellion of our own over in Wilshire Boulevard. Somebody was trying to go over to this embassy and start a friggin' rebellion. I wonder what flag this is. Could it be Turkey? Yes. So, your city permitted a demonstration shutting down the entire Hollywood freeway so you could have a group of people go to the Turkish embassy to demand reparations for the Armenian genocide. If somebody was hurt out of that consulate, you would have caused an international incident. You never, in any of your proclamations, never said that the present government of Turkey was not responsible for the Armenian genocide. You make this fiction up that these people today that are our allies, this proud flag, they try to decimate a country, a present government, for something that happened 100 years ago in a country called the Ottoman Empire. It was not Turkey. These people that work in this consulate, this embassy, were in fear of their lives as these demonstrators were descending over to their consulate. When are you going to stop dividing people like this? Make it clear that Turkey is not a genocidal nation. They are an ally of the United States. In fact, they helped the Kurds avoid extinction at the hands of Saddam Hussein, and they continue to support civil rights for many minorities.
So 1 minute public
So
comment.
make that clear. Thank you.
No other cards. Everybody continue to have a good day. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
See you.